Well, it's the biggest fixture in Spain coming up, and we had to bring on a special guest for that one. We have Ruri Barlow from Football España. What's going on, Ruri? Are you excited for this?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, special, I'm not so sure, but I am a guest. And as you say, biggest game in Spanish football. So it's always exciting. There's also a little bit of a buzz. I was outside the Bernabeu on Wednesday night, it was, after the Juventus game and stuff. And you can kind of feel that, even though Juventus are obviously a huge side, Champions League game, that there's always that special feeling at the Bernabeu. Everyone kind of had one eye on the Clásico and was kind of waiting to see how things developed, thinking ahead towards it.
Yeah. So first thing I want to just talk about the mood in Spain right now. I just La Liga is always evolving. Every year is different, and the whole Villarreal incident also kind of casts a shadow over this game. Like Tebas literally getting into a war of words with our players. I haven't seen anything like that. This like something about Spain, like between the president kissing the player and all that. Like it's just a little strange. And well, I guess there's a lot of hatred from the Barcelona side that we kind of took their money away as well. What do you think about that whole situation right now? Is there a lot of tension?
I think, to be honest, I mean, it depends who you speak to. I don't think a lot of, at least people that I speak to, are really that bothered about it, even in the US or in Spain. To be perfectly honest, I think there's not kind of a strong feeling, other than a little bit of a general kind of rejection of the idea of playing abroad. I think generally, I think that kind of even goes beyond club colours. I think even if there'll be some Barcelona fans that um, obviously want the money. My view is, and I don't quite know what this is based on, but my view is that that tends to be more online. And I think a lot of the kind of on the ground fans are not particularly in favour of taking games outside of Spain. I think the tension is more political, and as you said, Thibaut Courtois put it quite well. And it's just like, look at this president. I mean, he's replying on Twitter to people. You don't see that from the presidents of the NBA or the NFL. It's not something that happens very often. So yeah, I think there is kind of tension, but I mean, this is a story that comes up every year, gets shot down every year. What I guess the difference was this time was that they got a little bit further and that they had Villarreal really kind of publicly being on board with it, whereas even Barcelona weren't exactly pushing this game publicly, which is strange because they've been one of the more vocal advocates for it.
Yeah, and I mean, I just think that ties into a theme of like there was a Super League. There was a report that came out that just between this and a few things that's been happening recently, the relationship between Laporta and Perez is broken down. I traditionally, a few years ago, was very vocal saying that I believed on some level Real Madrid and Barcelona work together in a sense, in that it's like a left versus right divide where you just you shake all the ants into one or the other bucket, and it creates like tribalism between both sides that actually increases how much passion there is for something that otherwise wouldn't exist in the first place, because it's like drama. It's not just the sport, but it's the spectacle of drama, the hatred. And I always felt that on some level, like we like La Liga is incentivized to have a strong Real Madrid and Barcelona. And even we saw with Tebas, and I think, was it Messi, or just at moments he's talked about how like he needs both these teams to be propped up. This was a one time where I feel like they just were like, no, like you don't need money for not playing at your home stadium. I liked it too. I thought, do you think that we would have stopped the game if our players didn't speak up? Do you think it would have stopped, or do you think the 15-second pauses and kickoffs also affected things?
I think it must have had a bit of a cumulative effect. I think the largest factor is probably Florentino Perez being opposed to it. And one thing you can guarantee, as much as Barcelona and Real Madrid, as you say, are kind of, they need each other in a certain sense. If you want to boil it down to very modern terms, they're both kind of content creators, and essentially they're WWE characters. They need to have this kind of villainous image of each other, and they need to go back and forth, and they need to kind of, one of them needs to come off the top rope at the other every now and then, and somebody needs to pull out a steel chair. With Tebas, I mean, you can almost guarantee that anything that he suggests will be shot down by Real Madrid. I thought the Villarreal president, in a sea of things that he said that were kind of a little bit pushing or stretching the truth, or stretching kind of what I believe in. He did put it right in that Real Madrid are against everything, and in a certain sense in La Liga, that's correct. With UEFA, that's correct. You guys are at war with everyone right now.
We are. Um, we are. I mean, I think it's just like there's a lot of institutionalized interests, and Perez is all for innovation. And at the same time, some of the things he wants to innovate, like he's been maybe pissed off and he doesn't realize a lot of people won't. He doesn't understand the optics of innovation. I just feel like actually the Villarreal game might have accelerated the end of the league by just compromising its integrity. Like it's like, okay, you did this. It's not even the same league anymore. Let's just scrap it and start a super league. I honestly thought that would have been the next domino to fall quickly. And
which might have helped Perez.
yes. And I just think, and that's where I think, I feel like where Perez is on a decent side is that I think he wants like profitable competitions that make a lot of money. And I think he's 100,000% right that the big teams need to play each other more. The Champions League games, sorry, like Real Madrid Elche is not as good as a Champions League game. Like it's just not. I love these games for what they bring. I love the like the way the season is. It's like a meal. Like not every part of the season is going to taste the same. Like the small games have their own flavors. But like big teams playing big teams is inherently more unpredictable. And like this new Champions League format, I feel like is moving in the direction that people want, even if it's like it's not the Super League, but it's a good format.
Yeah, I'm quite old fashioned. I like my leagues, the 20 teams. I like it to be an absolute grind. I like everyone to. I honestly I find kind of big games slightly exhausting. I think if you look at that Juve game, for example, Juve, who are literally the most successful side in Italy and a household name across the world, there wasn't even that much hype about that game. It wasn't even important. And I think, for me at least, from my point of view, I'll disagree with you here. I think it devalues these big games because you get them so often that nobody outside of the fans of those teams, I don't think anybody really cared about a Real Madrid Juventus game, which you can look at it one way and you can say, well, we've got two giant fan bases. They're both going to tune in. They're both going to consume all this content. So we're going to get more that way. But from my point of view, as a pure kind of spectacle thing, I would rather see Real Madrid play Liverpool once every kind of 5 years, because then it takes on kind of a special layer because you don't know when you're going to get back.
When you don't
know when you, it's that scarcity principle. But yes, I do understand that I'm also not a businessman and and I don't have money in my mind.
Well, I think what's weird is like I agree with the scarcity. Liverpool and City are bad examples because we play them every year. So like. Yes. I think if you could find a way to keep up, like that's not what I want, but like I think if we could rotate and always play one of the top 4 teams every year, like there should be, like the NFL sets its schedule so precisely. For example, they actually pick the fixtures and like they don't let you. It's not always like up to you. Like sometimes they just need a more entertaining league. It's not fair always, and that I think is an interesting approach. But now let's get into the game. Or sorry, go ahead.
I'll finish up on that. But just as a kind of wider point, I think part of the problem is that they now have so few big clubs. I mean, so few of these teams that in theory would be in a Super League or would be in that kind of 20, 25 team league that would play each other are considered big. I mean, you look at it now, like Bayern, Real Madrid, Barcelona, Atleti, will include them in there so as not to upset any colchoneros. But Manchester United, Liverpool, there's kind of 7 or 8 teams that are really considered big. And once you get past that, Dortmund, who in theory should be that other kind of yin and yang from Germany, aren't really on that same level. Same with all of the Serie A teams have now become a little bit devalued because they just can't compete financially. And I think 20 years ago, had they brought in a more of a kind of framework, had UEFA had kind of a salary cap in the same way that NFL does, then you would have had that equality more and everyone would be producing more money. But then that's a wider economic debate, I guess.
Yeah, it's weird. And listen, even in the NBA and NFL, it's not perfect because the amount of money you can spend on the non-salary cap things is still up to your owner. So you'll have like Steve Ballmer, the former owner of Microsoft, can outspend everyone on trainers, facilities, and all those things. But yeah, I agree. The salary cap is key. And, Real, we're looking at changing ownership too, just to compete with these oil clubs. I just think last year was really a great example. Like PSG double the wage bill. Like if half their team could be hurt, they'd still have Quicha out there. And Arsenal like outplayed them, but Arsenal are playing like nobody because they're on half the wage bill. They're owned by a billionaire instead of like a country. So it's like a little different. But yeah, it is funny. And now on that note, one team that's been doing a good job with their levers and honestly put a good Castilla, like a lot of young players, and those levers worked last year to put a pretty good team together. And they have the most expected goals since the start of last season outside PSG in top 5 leagues, according to Opta. I'm going to pull a lot of my stats and references from this amazing article written by Robbie Dunn for Opta about how Hansi Flick's flawed Barcelona faced their biggest test in the Clásico. So Barcelona obviously have dipped a little this season, and the biggest stat that he references is that their big chances they've given up 24, and only 10 of the 96 teams in Europe's top 5 leagues have given up more. In La Liga, only Sevilla, Girona, and Levante have given up more big chances. So the fine margins that let them win balls back have kind of fallen apart. They're vulnerable.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll throw it back to if the very loyal listeners who were here in our season preview, I believe it was, as Inigo Martinez sealed his move to, it was Al Nassr, wasn't it? It was Cristiano's team, yeah. Sealed his move to Saudi Arabia. And we both said at the time that this was a terrible idea because regardless of what you may gain in salary limits, you lose his leadership, you lose that little bit of competitive edge that he brings to that back line. And we've seen the impact of it. I think the causes are obviously wider than that, but the loss of Martinez was important. I think injuries are very important as well. I mean, Joan Garcia, I think, is probably the biggest difference maker they brought in. And you saw they didn't lose a game before Joan Garcia went out. And that's because he was making loads of saves from those big chances. And yeah, I think Barcelona up front as well. Lewandowski's been out. Ferran has been in and out the side. Rafinha is the one that Hansi Flick keeps mentioning and saying, look, not so much in so many words, but he keeps saying this guy was the guy that was kind of leading our press. This guy was the one that set the tone. He was our leader. We all praised him very much until about kind of March when we decided it was just Lamine Yamal we were going to talk about. And yeah, Rafinha's absence is hurting him a lot. And I think, cumulative effect of a lot of these factors has kind of shaken that press off. And again, we said it last year as well. I mean, everyone said that high line was suicidal, but it wasn't because it was well worked. And now that it's slightly less worked, it is a bit suicidal.
Yeah. A lot of great points. And let's touch on each of these one by one. First, Inigo, just briefly. Yeah, I mean, I think with Inigo, it's just that he brought the on-ball stuff and wasn't injured and could still defend. So Christensen can defend and play on the ball, but he's injured. Araujo can defend and play, but he can't play on the ball. And then that leaves Kubarsi. And who else is playing center back?
Garcia.
Eric. Yeah, Eric can't defend, but is really good on the ball. I mean, I don't think that's changed, right? He's just playing in an absurdly high line where he doesn't have to tackle as much.
He's not as good a box defender. So I think he can defend facing forward, basically. If he's going forward, he's quite good at defending. And then if you get him running backwards, that's where your issues come in. But weirdly, he has probably been their best defender this season of everyone.
So Kubarsi struggled a little playing on the left side, like not having the left-footed angle like Inigo, you'd say?
Yes, I think it's... I mean, he said it earlier this week. He said, look, I mean, I'm comfortable playing whichever. I'm happy to do either for the team, but the right is the profile that I excel at most. And ultimately, if you're a defender, I mean, I know it as a fullback myself who wasn't very gifted. As soon as you change your entire kind of vision of the pitch, as soon as you flip across one side of the pitch, your entire kind of internal mechanics are thrown off a little bit. And so, although I'm sure he can play on the left side, he's just not going to be as effective with the ball if you do kind of switch him on the other side. And I think Inigo Martinez's loss is impacting that centre-back room. And they've not had a settled partner for Kubarsi because Garcia started at right back, Ronald Araujo was out and then in, and then Christensen, as you say, constantly injured. So yeah,
Araujo's always just feels like he's not far from a mistake now. Like he's just the opposite of what he used to be. And he never shed that part of his game. Like the same Araujo who Barcelona scapegoated for that loss to PSG with that pass and the red card. And yeah, just, one of the tactics writers, Ashraf, pointed out before the season that he felt Inigo Martinez, like the way he broke the press with his left foot was absolutely key. He was like, yo, like this isn't going to work. Kubarsi can't do it. And I was just like, I believe you. I want to see it, but I believe you because the guy goes with a lot of nuance. And I understand that now in the modern game, how you shift a line like with your defense actually affects like dominoes all the way down the pitch. And it's just become a lot more intricate. So I'm pretty satisfied because on our end, like we had Sergio Ramos and then we had David Alaba who came in with the left foot. Ramos was, in my opinion, one of the best at playing the angles from the left center back zone because he could just so easily switch it right. But he was good like Cruz, where he could kind of like manufacture angles and feel comfortable on the left side. Alaba, obviously left-footed, did a great job for us. But I like telling Barcelona fans, Dean Huijsen's better on the left than Cubarsí.
Yeah, he is. He's got a good left foot, Dean Huijsen, that has to be said.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, even beside, yeah, he's a little ambidextrous, but also he manufactures the angles, he carries, and he's aggressive on the left. And yeah, I think we have a better left center back for build up than them. But I know that's not saying too much. But I guess the next one, Joan Garcia, I want to touch on him. Listen, he's a huge loss. How the hell did Europe let Barcelona get him? These guys are like still surviving off the levers, bro. Just throw money. It's the best goalkeeper in Europe. Like, I don't know how much you know, but apparently statistically, I've just been hearing like with public, non-public measures, even he pops off. Like clubs know that he's number one by far. I love Courtois, but man, this guy is something else right now. This guy's better right now, I admit. And honestly, when he got hurt, I don't root for players to get hurt, but if a player on an opposition team is hurt, I'm going to register what that means. And
and there's a smile on your face, I notice.
Yeah, no, he's really scary. I think the scariest timeline for me is the one where Joan Garcia like takes this high line and just carries them the way Courtois did our deeper lines in previous years. And that would have been scary. Szczesny, according to the piece, by the way, I believe he's making way more mistakes. So Garcia was averaging just 2.7 unsuccessful passes per 90 before his injury, and Szczesny's averaged 6 since coming in. So double the mistakes. And on top of that, Szczesny has 1.2 sweeper keeper actions per 90, I believe, and Garcia was at double. So Garcia, half the bad passes, double the sweeper actions. And, you know, and like to quote La Pausa, literally, Robbie Dunn again did a phenomenal job. But these are really fine margins. But when you have a system that is calibrated for perfection, they can really matter. And that's like could be the difference between a 3-2 last year to them and a 3-2 to us, a 4-3 to them, 4-3 to us. I don't think people see that. But yeah, I mean, you've said just a brief touch on, since you've written about them, Espanyol doing well without him. They moved on.
Yeah, Espanyol. I was surprised at how kind of competent and comprehensive their recruitment was after it. Normally you see somebody kind of taking big money for a player and usually they spend it on one kind of slightly up and down forward who has a lot of potential, but they've done really well, Espanyol, and credit to them because he was their best player and without him they don't stay up last season. I think the impact of losing your best player can also be pretty large. CC Neymar at Barcelona in 2017, and not their best player at the time, obviously, but the reaction to it can be quite hard to deal with. And Espanyol went and strengthened almost their entire team with it. So they've now got kind of 2 players per position. You look at the signing of Therese Stolan, who you will have seen against Real Madrid. He looks kind of bright and sparky, even if he's not perfect. Roberto Fernandez is a very strong option up front. Kike Garcia, one of the kind of lead veterans that's been around forever and just will not shoot 10 goals from here or there. They've got now kind of quite a competent looking squad, and yeah, credit to them. Hats off to Fran Garagata and Manolo Gonzalez, who hopefully will be sticking around for a while for them, given they have new owners in, and we know that tends to mean somebody gets sacked sooner rather than later.
Yeah, good to know. Next, Rafinha Lewandowski is chaining the banner here because just talking about their forward line. Rafinha, yes, to quote Flick, I miss Rafinha. He was really important last season. He was fantastic. And yeah, I think Flick definitely gave me the vibe that he's like, guys, this is 50 goals and assists. Let our press. Like, what do you think?
Yeah,
I do think he was underrated. I mean, I think Rafinha has been underrated the whole time at Barcelona because first he can't like one touch and turn like Yamal or something. And this goes back to Xavi's days. Like, when they were struggling under Xavi, he was getting scapegoated. But actually, if you looked, his expected goals and assists were through the roof. They were bricking everything. Lewandowski was missing everything. But back then, and then he turned it on the second half of the season. I'm just like, you guys are just so results oriented. Like the process was actually really sound with him throughout. Like he's just absurd underlying numbers. So energized. And yeah, he is a big miss. Yamal is also just like, I just want to hear your thoughts on him, like on his PR, because I think he's just not taking the messy route. He's taking the more like provocative route, which is I think he's fine. I thought his comments were like, I honestly thought they were funny in the sense that like, dude, you're 17, 18, you're playing the biggest game in the world. Like, what's going to happen? You're going to make more money because more people are going to tune into the drama and like talk about you and talk shit about you. Like his agent's probably like, yeah, riled him up. So I don't blame that. But between like Lamine, Fati, Vasquez, and the signatures, like there's just a lot of conversation around him, and he's great, one of the best on the ball. But what do you think about him this season? Any unique thoughts about him? Just anything different from what we always hear? I'm just used to just seeing a lot of hatred spewed about him, and I'm like, he's a good player, and there's a lot of hyperbole. But I'm curious what you think.
Yeah, I mean, I can take you back to kind of when he was first breaking out, when he was kind of 15 or so, just before he made the first team that season, about kind of November to February time, when he was kind of on the edges, started training a little bit with Barcelona's first team, the senior side. And there was already kind of talk about this guy's going to be good, this guy's going to be in the first team. But it was mentioned that his entorno is the word they love in Spain, his kind of environment, the camp around him, was perhaps not the most ideal or the most likely to focus him on his game. We see Lamine Yamal's father in the press all the time, just talking about literally anything they ask him, which I don't know if that helps or hurts, but certainly it's not particularly common amongst the elite footballers that we see kind of leaving the game. And also, it's got to be another thing to kind of touch on is the fact that you mentioned he's not like Lionel Messi. His idol was always Neymar. He was the one that he kind of looked up to more than Messi, even if he's always acknowledged that Messi was the best or the best player, better player. Neymar was always the one that he kind of took from. And if you remember kind of Neymar's breakout at Santos, he was what Lamine is right now in Brazil. So yeah, I think you can kind of see a lot of facets of that within Lamine's behavior right now, or within his kind of media profile. And he said it himself last season. Look, I mean, they can't say anything while we're winning, but when the winning stops, that's when the pressure will come, and we'll see how he deals with it. But I don't think it will be a long-term issue. I'm sure he will kind of calm down, provided he has the right guidance. I think Hansi Flick is probably the right guidance, but yeah, for now, he's probably going to go through some growing pains that we didn't see initially.
Yeah, I mean, just on the note on the pitch, he profiles exactly like Neymar too. Yeah, like his level of danger and goal creation he's adding without shooting is basically like Neymar's, is my understanding. I'm not going to cite my stats and stuff, guys. Like, it's just public and private, but like in general, like it's very similar. It's one of the highest all time. Like, don't get me wrong, like just below around Neymar, Messi level on ball creation. The expected assists are pretty similar to Neymar, maybe a little lower than Messi. The shooting is obviously not there, like at all, compared to them. Like, he might score in big games and show the technique, but that's a way different thing than being a volume scorer. And I just think, firstly, like I do think Rafinha is the most important player in the attack, because I'm just having watched like all these teams over the years. I have a new theory that like the players that can pass and shoot are the ones that don't take shots away from others, because they make the right choice all the time. And so Yamal does shoot well, but I think Rafinha is the only one who, out of all these names, that can do both. Like, Yamal is primarily a creator. Rashford is not a creator in any world, and that's why I'm worried about how we defend him off ball. But I am so much like breath of relief, just Rashford over Rafinha. It's just not even the same. And Ferran, he can press really well, but none of those guys are on ball creators the way Yamal is, and Yamal's not an off-ball runner and on-ball creator like Rafinha. So I think I just feel like defensively, this might be a way easier matchup for us than usual. And I think Ferran's going to play. So it's like, what, Ferran, Rashford, and Lamine, because Ferran's going to press.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, and Lewandowski hurt himself for Poland when he shouldn't have, which was really funny.
Yes. Yeah, I think Ferran will probably lead the line. He'll be number 9. Rashford on the left. I think it's interesting, because I think with Lewandowski, it makes much more sense of having a Ferran or a Rafinha on the left. With Lewandowski out, I think it is slightly better fitting where you say have Rashford and Lewandowski, because Rashford, even though he is kind of pacey and in behind and should be more of an in behind threat, he is quite ball to feet somehow. He's a strange player, Rashford, and I think, like you say, the Rafinha comparison isn't there for me. I mean, until you kind of see it, and also that off the ball work rate. Quite often, I see Rashford not necessarily doing anything wrong, but you just don't see that intensity or that kind of bite that Rafinha had, and that was so crucial in cutting the lines off, especially if you have Lamine on the other side, who Lamine can press well when he wants to, but doesn't always want to, and so having that kind of balance, it's the same as having Koundé and Balde on one side or the other. it throws off those kind of balances. And I think Rashford and Lamine on the same side doesn't help as much. I think Varane being back is very useful. Then again, perhaps if they'd had Rashford and Lewandowski, that would have been a bit more of an issue pressing again. But yes, I think it's a good result for Real Madrid in that sense, that those are the kind of starting front three. And if I was to kind of rule out the players that I wanted to be there for Barcelona, if you're a Barcelona fan, you want Lamine there first, then you want, because he can do anything in a game, he can break it open out of nothing, then Rafinha, then Lewandowski. So that's two of their starting front three. With Juan Garcia, with Inigo Martinez, we're already kind of at half a team from what Real Madrid were playing last season.
Yes, exactly. It's literally a halfway different team. Also, just touching on Rashford's stats, he's actually almost at the same, pretty much similar starts and 90s to last year. He played a few more appearances, but he was creating a little more per 90 last year. But he's receiving the ball a lot. He's passing and carrying it a little more here. But yeah, I think Rashford is just a funny case. Like, I don't think he's gelled at all in terms of like on-ball play, but he scored those Newcastle bangers, and he's just that weird profile of player who never developed his game of progression properly, in my opinion, because he's fundamentally a ball striker first. And like, he never got even better at off-ball movement the way he should have under a better organization, in my opinion. But it's just funny because like he's so far away from getting where he needs to be, but it's like he's on such a good team that actually platforms him so he can win them games like Newcastle without getting slandered like he did for a decade at Man United. And
I think he's a very good player, and I think it almost helps in some ways if you do have Rafinha to have Rashford in your squad, because he's so kind of atypical in some ways in the way he moves and the things that he does. The kind of the way he strikes the ball, especially normally if you leave a player 30 yards out and he strikes the ball, it's fine. But Rashford, there is a genuine threat there. So I think it's a good threat for Barcelona to have in their squad. However, as a starter, you want at least kind of the other two of your kind of front three there to kind of aid him.
Yeah. And I'm just going to present an image on why Ferran is going to play briefly here. From La Paz's and Robbie Dunn's latest article. But yeah, he had 37 pressures against PSG. He ran like a monster. And so 37 was the highest by any Barcelona attacker in the Champions League. So yeah, that's one thing to note. But in general, Barcelona's press has declined from 10.1 high turnovers they forced last season to 8 this season. And yeah, that's less. One more thing I want to note just on Jamal before we move on from him is I think he is so similar to Neymar in the sense that, the entourage stuff is there. And I thought his dad's comments at the Ballon d'Or were a little out of touch. I'm like, dude, just because you have a mic doesn't mean you have to like be a stan in front of the mic. Like you can just be normal. You can be humble. You can congratulate Dembele. But I forget if he called it a robbery, but it was just weird. I'm like, why are we trying to like pretend what we saw with our eyes was like a complete lie for 1 year? Or yeah, just this idea of that, like, you can speak Yamal being the absolute best player alive into existence, even if it's not reality, is a little strange to me. And yeah, the disrespect to Rafinha. I wonder if it's just because like I think it's the aesthetic bias, but like I don't think it's like Morocco, Spain versus Brazil. But I think because if Lamine Yamal was from Brazil but took the touches and Rafinha was playing the way he is but is from Morocco, Spain, you'd still get the same thing. But yeah, the aesthetic bias is really high. I just feel like the bias towards on-ball players, on-ball creation can be a little high over at Barcelona. And regarding that, the best period of Neymar's career was when he was forced to play on and off ball, work hard defensively, fit in a team. That was all at Barcelona. Once he played at PSG,
Luis Enrique.
yes, and it's widely understood that Barcelona contained Neymar. So Yamal is like trying to break out of Barcelona orbit very early. Feels like he exerts a very heavy gravity. It'll be interesting to see because they did just deal with Messi, and they did pretty well with Messi until Bartomeu tried blaming him for things. Yeah, I'm just curious. Like, I think that's where having a leader like Florentino helps. I wonder how Laporta will manage it. He obviously didn't get a chance to manage Messi the whole time when he was there.
I think it's interesting. I think they will need kind of strong veterans, and as we said, I mean, Inigo Martinez again. Sorry to keep coming back to him, but just as we're touching on points, he keeps coming back to mind. Lamine himself noted Inigo as kind of the captain when he did his kind of farewell message or wherever it was, and said like this guy was kind of our leader. Similarly, I think you want Lewandowski's a slightly different case because he's been the kind of prima donna, the ego man himself. He's been the kind of main man, so he's not quite exerting that same kind of collective mindset in the same way that another player would. But I think Rafinha did take on a lot of that role last season. I think you want those big characters, and even if Gundogan may have thrown Ronald Araujo under the bus and somewhat knocked off his entire confidence, I think you do want kind of elements that will push back against them. And I think that'll be something to watch over the coming years. And again, on kind of Munir, on Lamine Yamal's favor, Neymar also had a slightly wayward favor in terms of his management of his affairs.
Yeah, definitely. Will be interesting. Now, switching over to the team that more people would have tuned in for if we started with Real Madrid. But listen, I think big games like I mean, for channel conversion, just to be transparent, more people will click if we start with Real Madrid. But for curiosity, scouting and planning and diligence, which is what we're about at The Real Deal, you got to focus on the other team. It's not all about you sometimes. Can't be narcissistic. Think like if you get everything right. Like I feel like there's an increased narcissism in online fan spaces where they just like criticize themselves, their coach, their fans. No attention played to other teams, how good they are. No appreciation paid to the fact that for 10 years you played football, won trophies. You don't win every game in the season. Some of those things are lost. And so I think that was all on display with Juventus Real Madrid on Wednesday. You were at the Bernabeu, so amazing to have you here. I'll tell you what I saw, and I know what you saw, and I think we saw the same thing, but you were there, so I'm very interested. I just saw a team that's learning to defend with the ball, that had a boring first half and then slowly turned it on and won the game, that created 2.7 expected goals and just shot some lower quality shots, that has cohesion issues, but it's defending with the ball and it looks ugly sometimes. Like Man City are horrible to watch some games. Like I'm okay saying that. And I know we're not Man City yet. Like we're pretty bad in some phases. I don't mean to say, but I think for me, I'm acceptable with growing pains. I just feel like for me, keeping at least half the game in a state where it's closer to 0-0 is how Real Madrid can win a game. And then you decide when to make it a period of the game where you want to take the initiative. But like the default being nobody gets to have fun. I like that. But the Bernabeu, did they like it?
Yeah, I mean, the Bernabeu is always quite fickle. I tend to think the Bernabeu is quite a good register of kind of where you should step back from, because sometimes they tend to be a little bit harsher on the team than is perhaps warranted. But yeah, I think in general, if you look at this Real Madrid side, it's two different approaches to the same thing. I mean, Carlo Ancelotti kept saying, I want to keep a clean sheet, and if we keep a clean sheet, then we'll win the game, basically.
Well, he said it.
Yeah,
he said it. But
exactly. And so that's what Xabi Alonso kind of wants to do, but he's just going about it in a different way, defending high up. And so far, I think his focus has been on that. And I think if they can fix that, they will win those games. And so that's the important thing. And then later on, you can kind of mess around up front a bit and have a little bit more freedom, perhaps, once you've kind of got those kind of tenets of what you want off the ball set. So yeah, I think that's where kind of Alonso's mindset is, and to a certain extent. I think the lack of balance in the squad in some areas. We've spoken about kind of Arda Guler and his kind of development. I tweeted out for those that do follow me that he's kind of really hitting kind of a sweet spot that Real Madrid really need, and a lot of the chances that Mbappe is getting is because of him. A lot of the ways that Real Madrid open up the pitch is from him being able to open up the game. And one thing that I really like that he's doing a lot now is kind of like looking off defenders. So he will ahead of time know where he's going with the ball, but will deliberately look off to the other direction or kind of cut back inside after going outside first, because he knows that's the way to shift the defense and open that line that he wants to hit. Whereas before, I mean, again, he was like 18, 19, so it's perfectly reasonable for him to be like this. But before, I think you gave him the ball and he was thinking about, how can I strike this ball? How can I get to that assist or that goal? And he has the talent to do it sometimes. But now he's kind of really starting to refine that ability that he has on the ball and move around defenses in a way that benefits Real Madrid much more. And yeah, if you're Barcelona, your kind of main game plan defensively will come from shutting down Mbappe and then shutting down Guler, who's the supply system too.
Yeah. This way we should set up is interesting because most games, including Atletico, we've set up to keep the ball. Atletico had backfired bad, where you almost wonder, like, if the buildup looks mediocre against Juve, in some of these bigger games, you need to be careful. The theme has been the easier the team, the more we just figure it out this season. And something just clicks. The bigger the game, the more the cracks appear. And well, Sevilla manager, back to Robbie Dunn's article. I've studied Barcelona for years. Every team that sits back and waits ends up losing, 98% of them. You have to look for other ways to beat them. Matias Almeida said before the 4-1 win over Barcelona. Interesting stat from the article. In 3 matches where Barca have truly struggled this season, they recorded fewer than 10 sequences of 10 plus passes. And in every other game that they've been doing well, they had at least 15 sequences of 10 plus passes. So the man marking and the pressure is the way to disrupt them. But again, this is just so perfectly worded. What worked for Sevilla and PSG doesn't automatically translate to Real Madrid. I think that's the thing people really need to internalize. Like, we can't copy them, but there are elements of what they do that we need to take. And there's a lot of thought here, but the one thing everyone says we need to do is just go at them in transition no matter what. Like, I think for me, the key is doing that and abandoning the 15 passes and build up. I think with Barcelona, there's actually like a balance, like 3 or 4 passes to like stretch the back line out. What have you seen? What's their big weakness? Are teams like baiting their press way more easily now?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's come in kind of phases. I mean, if you look at that Sevilla game, they kind of got taken apart for a stage of it. If you look at the Rayo game, they got taken apart for stages of it. Same with the Levante game. The problem for Barcelona is they don't actually look very fit, which is kind of a surprising thing given they had the whole preseason and stuff, and they looked kind of really like engines last season. And so they've been that half yard off, as we've mentioned in the press, with that high line. And I think what it's resulted in is having kind of 20, 30 minutes of a game where they've not been able to do that press. And if you do that against Real Madrid, then you're likely to get cut up. So I think that's what Real Madrid will be happy with. I think it will be moments of the game they'll look to press. I mean, you looked at it in the Atleti game, and even in that game, Real Madrid had 10 minutes where they were quite good and they were kind of coming forward. They were beating Atleti in transition, and they were getting home kind of on their press a little bit more. And then they had kind of a lot of the game where they just were completely kind of, they themselves were half a yard off. There's a really good clip where Koke just kind of steps out of a press from Bellingham, and you look at it and you think 33-year-old Koke against 21-year-old Bellingham. Bellingham should be all over him. He shouldn't be kind of a half a yard slow. So I think it's those moments managing the points of the game. I think Alonso will probably be a little more nuanced in his approach than perhaps Sevilla were, for example. I think he will try and press in certain points, and I think he'll drop them back at certain points. And similarly to Barcelona, I think it'll be interesting to see if Flick, in the knowledge that his side aren't operating at full function, and the knowledge that his side do have injuries, will he adjust and kind of drop them a little bit deeper? I thought that we saw bits of that last season in the last 2 Clásicos in the Copa del Rey. I thought they defended 10 yards deeper at Montjuic. I thought they also defended 10 yards deeper for stages of that game as well. So will he drop them 10 yards deeper? And will Real Madrid try and combat Barcelona in a different way than they have been kind of approaching the entire season, basically?
Yeah, I think the thing is if you man mark them, you're worried that you just get caught out easily with a run. There's no Rafinha, but there's still Rashford and guys who can do that. If you don't man mark, you're scared. You're just not giving yourself a chance. And that's why it's interesting. I think as Real Madrid, we have to make sure there's a way for Guler to find Mbappe. And like, it doesn't matter if it takes 1 pass or 4, or if it's like in transition, or if it's like after the center backs exchange 2 passes. There needs to be a reliable way. And I am nervous just to see when and how that comes to fruition, because the Atletico game first half, Guler got the ball twice. We scored 2 or something or something like that. And I mean, no, not literally, but the point is that game he was so efficient, and it didn't feel like we had an outball in the first half, and we still made so much of it. That's where my confidence comes in. And I think that Guler to Mbappe and Vinny, who's really dangerous right now, we'll touch on. I think that's the big key. Vinicius is back in form for what it's worth. Even earlier in the season, people saw growing pains, and yes, his expected goals and assists was down a little bit when he got benched. But like the last 7 games, he's decided like a few of them, multiple. And I think like he's decided as many as Mbappe now in the last like 5-7 games. And that's really encouraging. One concern though is that Mbappe himself, that ankle after, it's definitely not 100%. Last 2 games you felt it. Juve was his worst game of the season. But yeah, in general, I trend towards the. I think finding transition is key, and this kind of goes back like a decade whenever we play Barcelona. Like they've always had a better possession game model head to head. Even when we had Cruz, Modric, Casemiro, we beat them in the Super Cup. They still won the league that year during our three-peat and walked over us. So it's always been a theme of like our game plan just doesn't work, whatever it is sometimes. But I do believe like when Bale was fit, or like just the years where we have a bit more transition threat, it is just the kryptonite to a team that wants to play such a high line. And with Atletico, my worry, I feel like with Juve, he repeated the Atletico approach because he didn't respect Juve. You can pass it around 15, 20 times. You're not going to concede too much, and we're playing defense. Against Atletico, I thought like whenever Carreras and Dean, after we were tackled 100 times, when they still tried playing it on the ground instead of just booting it and like trying to run for it. I thought that just screamed a team that wanted to play on the ball. That's what I don't want to see today. But I don't know how, as a coach, you tell the players, hey, make 4 passes, but if the press is too high, boot it. Like, how do you tell them that? How do you train that?
And that's ultimately, I think, touches on something that a lot of coaches will mention, but never really gets picked up on because it's kind of a boring moot point. It's just like this is a player's game, and ultimately, if you get a player that can interpret that moment better than the opposition player, then that's what kind of creates that opportunity. Same with kind of Guler and Mbappe. They come up with those big moments because they can tell when to go, when to not, and kind of manage that kind of. They have that half yard of quickness of mind, more so than pace at times, that knows when to do that and when to not. And I think that will be something that Xabi Alonso looks for more than they saw in the Madrid derby. I think other factors to touch on, I think, again, we talked about Barcelona's lack of leadership, or the leaders that are not with this time. Real Madrid need to compete a lot better than they did against Atleti. There were times when Atleti just ran over them, and that was pure competitive kind of lust, for want of a better word, angst, something along those lines, desire. And I think Lamine Yamal's comments will help, but Real Madrid need to come out kind of a little bit on fire and kind of really go after this Barcelona side in a way that makes it difficult for Barcelona to both build up if they're going man-to-man, as you say, but also in a way that kind of attacks that vulnerable line. And I think setting the tone in these games, competing, kind of having all these kind of silly things that Sean Dyche might mention that sound kind of really null and void, they are really important. And being able to have leaders that kind of inspire that set the tone, I think are kind of fundamental to what decides these big games.
Yeah, agreed. And I think it's going to be interesting. One thought is Jules Koundé. How's he looking?
Not good. This is the worst Jules Koundé at right back I think we've seen in quite some time. That will be one that Vinicius is kind of licking his lips at. I think he'll be pretty happy to face this Jules Koundé if he is in this form. Koundé has also missed the last 2 training sessions with muscle discomfort. They say he's going to be fit, but we'll see. For what it's worth, I think Barcelona would be better off with Araujo in the back line and Eric Garcia at right back, which is a real departure. And I know he's kind of, you put him one-on-one against Vinicius, he's going to lose most times, but defending, facing forward, as I say, Eric Garcia is quite good. Whereas I think Koundé right now, he's making mistakes both with and without the ball that are just too kind of egregious to not kind of cause you issues, whether that's kind of lack of positioning, whether that's not making the challenge. You've seen him beaten quite a few times, and I think that's another factor that has hurt Barcelona quite a lot this season.
Yeah, World Cup final 2022 Koundé. I'm excited.
Di Maria would have been, yeah.
That, I mean, I just remember he was run ragged in that game, and Vinny's first step right now looks crazy, and it kind of ties into a theme. Alonso's really improved our energy management. I think that's what I liked about those, like all these games people call boring. It's like, yeah, like don't run, don't sprint, don't make it a spectacle until you have to, because you can only do that so many times in your life before you have to sign another Jude Bellingham, before Fede Valverde goes down, before Rudiger is no longer a player you could count on. And I'm really big on that because we've won 6 times in 12 years. We kept Cruz and Modric for 10 years. Jurgen Klopp isn't doing that with those boys. Jurgen Klopp is running them into the ground. I think it is part of our club philosophy to actually not waste too much energy on, like, to not try and create a 10-0 spectacle every week against small teams by pressing and leaving. You want to leave energy in the tank. And the biggest players I see that with, Jude, his role defensively is so limited. Yes, he needs to be better on offense. A role that suits him more is still being developed. Only been a few games back. and that Atletico game being the first one didn't help. So yeah, it's just because you throw that out the window and you maybe change things after that, and coach is like, okay, I'll integrate you later. Jude, though, doesn't have to work as hard defensively. I think someone pointed that out in the comments or somewhere. Or basically his role is way more limited. Or sorry, that was Robbie Dunn again on this article. It's funny. But yeah, so many. But I've just noticed, like, I'm just watching him like, okay, like you can play till you're 30 now. You're not going to die at the age of 24 of a heart attack because you kept running. And like it's just way more controlled. And Vinny, like just the years under Carlo, it was a lot of frustration, a lot of not knowing what our plan was to win the ball, a lot of being down in games and just sprinting hard and frustrated. And I think when you win, you get like a second win, you can do it again. But last year, I think it sucked the soul out of the team. Like Milan's one of the best examples. We just like ran around like headless chickens, like trying to get the ball and lost. Like it was just stupid. I think that's gone. Everything is more intentional defensively, which I like. But again, the mindset has to be there. Against Atletico, it's like, hey, we're gonna camp in their half, and the balls are gonna fall to Tchouaméni and Fede. So when they got the ball back, it's like, get it, camp in their half. I think this game, it's got to be like, listen, you might not get the chance to like settle, like take a sip of coffee, sit down on your chair and their final third. That's not always going to happen. And, but on that note, like some of those high exertion games where Vinny could literally dribble a team again and again till we win, I think he can do that now. He's taking way less touches, Vinicius. Like just the Juve game, you saw it. Like his second dribble, he decides the game with the Jude winner. When he gets it, you're terrified of his first touch, but it's unpredictable. And I think defenders are even more scared now because like maybe they're even lulled into a sense of complacency. Then when he goes for it, they're just burned. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's with Vinicius is kind of a bit strange because similar to Bellingham, actually. I mean, coming back to what you said about Bellingham's defensive kind of work rate, basically he's not being asked to defend 20 to 30 yards away from where he's attacking. So that's 20 yards that he's saving, kind of sprinting back essentially to deal with whomever's right back it was at the time. So yeah, that's obviously helping in Bellingham. But Bellingham, again, one of the things that he did so well was coming from deep and kind of attacking that space. And I think coming from the Bundesliga and coming from English football, that really kind of helped his adaptation to Spain because Ancelotti was playing quite a vertical attacking system in the sense that they went back to front as much as they kind of went wide and across. So yeah, I think that helped Bellingham. And similarly to Vinicius's raw pace, Vinicius's ability to go past players is the thing that makes him stand out. But having more limited opportunities to do that is going to shape his game differently because he's going to be more rounded because he obviously has kind of different options and he has different things to do, different duties. Alonso's asking different things from him. But at the same time, he's going to have less opportunities to do the things that makes him so good. So again, it's that kind of trade-off between what makes Real Madrid more solid, what makes them more kind of sustainable, in your words, to put it that way, and what makes these players individually look really, really great and what they can do on their own. So yeah, minimizing the kind of exertions that they have, but also making use of them, I think that's the balance that Alonso's still trying to probably look for. Muted, maybe?
Yeah, sorry, muted. Vinny's at 17 progressive receptions. I just realized a career high. So he's getting the ball really high and wide, and they're all asked to play in more controlled settings and smaller spaces. And his production is pretty much in line with all his best years at Real. Like 23-24 was his best, but he's slightly below that, but he's on par with last year, 22-23, 21-22. So all encouraging. Any other thoughts here, Ruri, as we wrap up? We've covered the tactics. We've covered most of the players. Any potential we're missing? Oh, one thing I want to say is, sorry, I asked you and then jumped in. Guler, I feel like the running theme of the season and even the Atletico game was like, can Guler play big games? But I think that shifted with Juve. It's like, okay, Guler has to play. Like the guy, they're literally scared and deferring to him when we don't know what to do. But then I would go further and say, I think we actually like the theme is like, look at Barcelona with Pedri and De Jong. Like, what do you guys have? I think one, Guler statistically is there now, just creation and not volume of passing, but as a secondary controller and just final ball machine, he's crazy. But I think Trent is the key, actually. Like, I think we signed him to literally win these games. And he took that cross quickly all those years ago too. He's been part of those things. And I really miss him, and I know I've been saying this every episode. I'm just weird nostalgic now, just begging for Trent like a weirdo.
After just 7 games.
Well, it's just the whole thing is like, hey, Dean, Huijsen, and Carreras and Trent are replacing Cruz and Modric was my whole thing, and it's like to an extent like Guler, Dean, and Carreras when they're all on the pitch, we have good press resistance, but it feels a bit like Real Madrid 13-14 before Cruz, where we didn't control the games as much. We played a little faster because it was Di Maria, Alonso, Modric. Di Maria and Alonso's controlling capacity is not close to, say, and Alonso, I include Alonso, to say Cruz and Isco. Like, Cruz is far better at controlling games than any version of Xabi Alonso, as much as I love him. And Alonso himself would probably accept this. And then you have the Di Maria was there then, and Modric was good, but Cruz is the very slow one. Modric played a little faster. I feel like Trent doesn't have to be slow, but in terms of exit capacity from the press, so to speak, like Dean and Carreras have it, but Atletico really showed me that Trent's the one who does it after a point. Because after a point, I think exit capacity becomes 360 scanning and distance to which you can go. And I guess like I've seen Fabregas rip highlines before, like Chelsea's Conte's Chelsea against Pep City, that famous game 2017. Pirlo used to do some of those things, but the game's evolved. Teams are more intense now, and I honestly think Trent is the number one cheat code for us. Like, I think like what Yamal does on ball for them, like Trent can almost do. Like, Trent has done crazy things, not with dribbling, but volume of creation, like he did for Liverpool. He made Jordan Henderson and James Milner functional. I see our team ripping into Tchouaméni, who's a very good player still, ripping into Fede, who just runs his ass off for the team. I'm like, guys, like Trent's not here. And yeah, I'm hurt. I'm hurt because our midfielders are being judged when like we signed Trent to complement the midfield. You know, we purposely went that way. We didn't go for like a defensive right back and a more attacking midfielder like Wirtz. We went this way because we think Trent is the best problem solver from that position. And not only that, the report came out this week that he's shy and like his injury happened at a time when I just knew we'd need him, and put it all together, and like he is back fit, and like he is the kind of guy who can literally break their line with one pass. So yeah, just me blabbering. I mean, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think what you say has a lot of kind of merit in terms of, I think, his ability on the ball. I don't think we saw kind of enough of it before he got injured, but in the theoretical of that is going to make a big difference to Real Madrid, especially as you say, kind of in that midfield, breaking down lower blocks, finding those kind of angles to get away from presses. I think it'll be interesting on Sunday just to see, because obviously Guler played a little bit deeper from against Juve. He came deeper more often, essentially, and I think that was partly because Real Madrid were so in control, so they could afford to do it. But yeah, I do like him slightly closer to the box, slightly closer to the final third. And I think where Alonso puts him will be firstly interesting, where he sees him as having that kind of greatest impact, and where Barcelona try and sell out their press. Are they going to sell out to shut down Valverde and Tchouaméni? Well, it won't be Valverde, he'll be at right back. But are they going to sell out to shut down Guler and Tchouaméni? Or are they going to sell out to try and shut down Camavinga and Tchouaméni? Or are they going to kind of stay that little bit further back to try and keep the clamps on Guler if he's playing further forward? I don't know. One thing I want to mention before I put the question to you is I just want to shout out Eder Militao, who I think has been absolutely fantastic. I mean, without Militao, this Real Madrid backline looks like it's falling apart again. I mean, he's been the one holding them together. He's been so good in the sense that he's been aggressive without necessarily getting caught out at all, but he's been the one that's kind of winning that ball back higher up a lot. And I've really liked what he's done so far this season. He's not had a consistent right back on his right-hand side. He's had Valverde, Trent, and Carvajal. Alongside him, he's not had Hausen there all the time. And with Hausen kind of looking a little bit shaky in those kind of aerial battles, in those kind of bigger games, Militao's been the one that's been a lot more solid. So big shout out for Militao. And I think he's done a pretty amazing job given the medical of coming off that ACL. And I don't know if you want a chance to respond to that, or I'll put the question to you about...
let me respond, but don't forget your question. You know, that can happen sometimes on these. But, the miracle is crazy. Just want to say, medical science has advanced, but this is still nuts. Like yes, R9 came back after all those injuries, but this is like 2 consecutive years, back to back, both legs. And R9 took his time. Okay, fine, he came back. He didn't come back like and be the best center back like on a team with Dean Huijsen like that. Like, you know, just he didn't do that. One, and two. Like I know people point out the chance we conceded against Juve. Okay, like first of all, Tchouaméni plays the pass that ricochets all the way into a through ball for Vlahovic. What do you do? What can you do about that? Like,
There's no planning for that.
yeah, I just looked at it. I'm like, oh my god, people are gonna look at this and make fun of it and just not realize this is literally randomness. And what happened was, he had to chase him, but by the time Vlahovic took the shot, Militao had closed the shit out of him. He had no angle. Like, he had no angle. He had to take a touch super wide. Like, that chance was honestly pretty bad. And in the moment, you couldn't tell, but by like in the final seconds before he takes the shot, he just closed it out. I thought that was great recovery. And I'm just wincing every time. I'm like, okay, they're gonna play you again on Sunday. They're gonna play you again. And
another 90 minutes.
Yeah, I just saw this happen to Rudiger and Fede. I'm a little jaded because as soon as he gets a little hurt, people are just gonna rip into him and also when he gets hurt, people are gonna rip into the club. Now they're just busy praising him, ignoring that like we have to play him every week. And Tchouaméni's still like getting some emergency center back minutes, I'm sure, just to help mitigate that. But yeah, I just want to say great stuff, Militao, and it is unprecedented. I just want to point that out. Like, it's not, I don't think this has happened to this degree before. The level of performance, even like within a few months of the recovery period of 2 consecutive injuries, I think it's a record. So yeah, just want to shout that out.
And the question was, Mastantuono or Camavinga, who do you start and where do you put everyone, basically?
So this is where I'm kind of confused. I really don't know where to go because Alonso's tinkered with the lineups a lot. I don't know who's playing right back. I guess we got to start there.
Valverde, I think.
You think Valverde is for sure? Okay. So Valverde is playing right back. Militao, Dean is back. Carreras is playing left back. And then I think I'm going to say Mastantuono because I think we want to maintain transition threat from the beginning. And I think when they're tired in midfield, Camavinga will cook them. Whereas Mastantuono, fresh, can still make mistakes. He can be sloppy. Get those out of the way and just use his verticality to wear them down. And then bring on Camavinga, who's honestly, when he comes on in the second half, is like goals for the team, like just his whole career. Like it's like you are a +1 in the second half with Camavinga or a +2. Your expected goal difference is high. The territories you play in are usually more favorable for your team than the others. Going back to the France World Cup, and I hate to say it, but like I just think Camavinga is a victim of how much football has evolved too. I think like someone like Tchouaméni can help execute a basic game plan, and him not driving and slicing the defense early doesn't change that Barcelona will tire an equal amount in the first half, no matter who plays. That's my belief. So if you believe that like Camavinga can hurt a tired Barcelona more than anybody else, you probably try to recreate that situation, because the goal is to create a situation where you have an advantage. And if that means benching him until the second half is where you have the advantage, that's what you do. I'm a firm believer in that. And yeah, I'd go Franco, Mbappe, Vinny, Guler, Bellingham, Tchouaméni. And yeah.
No, I'm going to say something that perhaps Real Madrid fans won't like, but I'll tell you the reason I would go with Franco as well. I'd go with Mastantuono is because he's got more personality than Camavinga. In big moments, and we've obviously not seen much of him in kind of big games in Europe, but he's played for River Plate. He's been the main man for them. He's played Libertadores kind of latter stages and been an important player. Camavinga, as much as he's done very well in kind of the Champions League at left back, and he's had his moments kind of off the bench, starting in those games in central midfield, we've not seen him kind of completely beat out another team. So even though he's a talented player, even though he's done good things in midfield, he's never been the one to kind of imprint his personality on a game. And I think Mastantuono, at this current time in his career, in the position he's being asked to play, which obviously is very different to anchoring the midfield with Tchouaméni and having that kind of responsibility, Mastantuono will give you kind of more personality than Camavinga.
Yeah, I agree. I'm worried about Camavinga's weight of pass, and it's just, I think in a game like this, that's less of a factor because I think they're going to press us so well. So if we're going to be slow on the ball anyways, Camavinga being able to turn and dribble might do a little more for us than Tchouaméni not being able to turn and dribble. But with that being said, I think Tchouaméni covers the sixth space more effectively as a shielder. More like he's still the closest thing to Casemiro in the squad. Nobody's quite like that. When you're defending in a pivot or in a block, or when you're playing a team like this, someone who can clean up those spaces is key. Casemiro shut down Messi for many years in Clásicos, as we remember. He changed the dynamics of those games. And I would just say, even before the Camavinga personality thing, I think we need a player with the mentality of like, I want to shut him down. And I think Camavinga helps, but Tchouaméni is that guy who will approach the game that way from the six. Camavinga is very like ball winner, ball magnet, just go to the ball, energy bunny. And but yeah, regarding the personality, yeah, I think the main difference is like Massantuano's on the wing. You can afford to lose the ball, and wingers are expected to lose the ball more. So it's just and so at his age, it's more conducive to like getting more minutes at a position that's anyways is okay with turnovers. With that being said, he turns it over a lot too. like he's a little overconfident in his technique sometimes, which is fine. Like that's at Real Madrid, it's okay. That's probably why we signed you. Like we saw Endrick's first goal. But yeah, I think the main thing is he can really be sloppy when he tries to dribble. But yeah, I agree about the personality. With Camavinga, yeah, it's just the weight of pass that struggles in the first half and the second half becomes, hey, like just he wins the ball. I don't know. It's just the whole dynamic's different because you're trying to play fast. That's what it is. When the first half, you're not always trying to play fast. When he tries to play a slow pass that kind of like shifts the defense, sometimes it'll just like not even have weight on it. Like he just loses it and it won't get there. And you're just like, dude, what are you doing? You're so good with it at your feet. What are you doing? Like focus, like take your time, play it the right way. And I think injuries have also played a role with that, where he's never really started a game and had instructions consistently. Never. Like he's always had to kind of be playing in makeshift roles or come into the team when others are injured. So yeah, I don't know if you want to close on that, or can I ask you a question now?
Yeah, no, go for it. Shoot.
Guler or Pedri? Who would you take? Gun to your head. I just asked because they're different profiles, and I don't mean to make this a competition for what it's worth, but I think it's fun because like Guler is so creative right now, and I will say, I think he has higher potential than Ozil. Like, I don't think people are wrong in saying that. I think Ozil himself said Guler is better for a reason. I don't know if it's the cigarettes with Ozil or just the laziness sometimes, the body language, the demeanor. It just wasn't always intense with him. And I'm watching this team, and I'm seeing all the people criticize Guler, and I'm like, bro, we started Ozil in Clásicos like a decade ago. Now I see, and something clicked in me. Like, when Kroos and Modric first played, they didn't win until Casemiro came into the team. And I think we're just in an inverse spot where like Tchouaméni, Fede, and Bellingham need like a Trent to come into the team. But within all that, Guler is right there with anyone I've seen on the ball, man. Like he's really, because he brings that De Bruyne, Ozil level creation, no question. Like he's very similar to De Bruyne in terms of way to pass and Ozil. And that's like 99th percentile Messi. But he's also growing as a passer in the other phases. And in this, like, if he's like playing 65 passes and still creating like that, would you want him or Pedri? That's my question.
I'll be honest, I think Goulet's got a bit of a way to go. I mean, I think Goulet is extremely talented, and we're starting to see kind of the ways that he can influence this Real Madrid side. I think currently you're right to say that he's Real Madrid's most creative player. He's the player that the ball has to go to in order to reach Mbappe, Vinicius, Bellingham in those good positions. And I think Real Madrid are kind of right to seek him out in that sense. But the difference being, I think with Pedri, about 80 balls go through him a game. Barcelona look for him in every single move. He is the one that is kind of entrusted to kind of direct the entire kind of makeup of their attack. And it was actually interesting when Lamine Yamal was out, actually, I think, because you saw Pedri's influence a lot more on the games without Lamine Yamal, because Lamine Yamal, he's very good in the sense that you can give him the ball and he won't lose it in a bad area for the majority of the time, but he will kind of look kind of very directly towards goal, whereas Pedri is a lot more refined in that sense, and he will kind of recycle it, go back and forth, move the defence around. And I think you saw in those few games without Lamine Yamal, Barcelona controlled games a lot better than they have been this season within the kind of limitations of what we've discussed and what they've struggled with. But yeah, I think Guler, right now, what we're starting to see is him influence games and open games with kind of moments of quality, with kind of bits of brilliance. Whereas with Pedri, I think currently you're seeing a version of Pedri which is controlling games, which is the kind of difference for me right now. But I mean, bear in mind that Pedri's been.
My question is, well, you have De Jong's next to him. That's why I'm curious, because it's like you have two. We don't have our Trent. When our Trent and Guler are here, how do we look? And I think fundamentally it'll never look the same. It's like the Trent and Guler are just more final third oriented than Pedri, De Jong ever will be. They're different profiles. Yeah, I was just curious because I see Guler, like, we're not controlling all the games, but those couple of moments like are the results right there. And the whole argument of like a 10 versus an 8.5 versus a 6. Everyone exerts influence differently, and it's always just fun to see. There are many ways to spin the cat.
Sorry, yeah, well, you're quite right there. I was going to say, you can certainly say, you could argue, I think, that Guler is perhaps being more decisive this season than Pedri, but at the same time, I'd still probably take Pedri if you're putting the gun to my head as you did.
Yeah. I think the interesting thing is if you swap them, how it would look for both teams is just a thought I've randomly had. Like Guler is like another Yamal level of creation in terms of final ball delivery. He can do the same things for their attackers, but he won't control the game as well. For us, Pedri would be phenomenal as a controller. I think Pedri would suit us really well, unfortunately.
Pedri is the one player that you look at Barcelona and say he's the one I'd stick on that Real Madrid team.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Well, I mean, he would play right ahead of our pivots too. It would be a really good fit, no question. But yeah, it was just an interesting thing I wanted to ask you. I just wanted to go over the stats too. We might as well while we're there. Guler versus Pedri, just for fun. So standard stats. Arda Guler is at 0.75 expected goals and assists per 90. Pedri's at 0.27. Obviously, they're different players. Pedri's at 11.4 progressive passes to Arda's 8.8. Pedri's only at 3.5 receptions progressively to Arda's 7. So yeah, just shows Arda playing higher up. But Pedri advances the ball even more in volume, as you can see with the progressive passing. Pedri also carries the ball a little more. Interesting. Double the progressive carries. So that's another thing. Although I wonder if that's partly a function of the way Flick's team plays too, just the way they send runners and let the ball have space all the time. So you can't always go to the ball. And then just going through the pass volume lastly. So Guler, 66 pass attempts a game, 86.6% completion. And Pedri, 94 passes a game, 91% completion. So yeah, it's Cruz versus Ozil or like Iniesta versus Ozil.
Fundamentally, I think it's interesting because these are two players that 15 years ago both would have been 10s and both would have played behind the striker and kind of had that kind of freedom to kind of roam around. I think Pedri probably still would have come deeper, and we've seen him be deeper than as a 10 itself. But I think that's again a function of kind of the lower blocks that you face, the fact that you're asked to do more defensively. And Guler, you saw it with Fenerbahce, he's a 10, but stick him out wide. That's what you do to every single 10 these days. So stick him out wide and then work him back into the center eventually.
That sometimes it's interesting because there are parallels to Ozil and differences. Like Ozil would sometimes have to be stuck somewhere because he couldn't defend to like the same thing. But at the same time, Ozil wasn't asked as often to come deep because football was different. Like it just was not needed as often. You'd have more time and space on the ball. It has evolved. And like that 100-goal team could just fundamentally play in transition more, and it was a more chaotic game, less about controlling space all the time. And now I think with teams closing you down, it's just funny. Like a lot of teams play a similar meta in the way they press you, kind of mark you, try to make you go long. And yeah, it is interesting. Any closing thoughts? What's your prediction, I guess? Oh, we didn't even do that. Predictions.
I said to CNN that it would be 3-2 to Madrid, so I guess I probably have to stick with that. I think Barcelona have a few too many injuries. And I think, again, if you look at the bench that Barcelona will be putting out on Sunday, Ruri Barlow is the only real attacker that they have on the bench. Whereas you look at Real Madrid, Mastantuono, if he's not playing, you've obviously got Rodrigo to come on. There's a lot on the bench. Who knows? You could maybe see a rare sighting of Endrick. But yes, Real Madrid will have the strength off the bench. And for two teams that I think Real Madrid are a little bit fitter, but still not quite there. Barcelona, as I said, looking unfit. I think that kind of final burst of energy in the last half hour could make the difference.
Yeah, that's what I think as well. I think our bench will help decide it. I think some back and forth is to be expected in the first half because our deep defending is not going to be great necessarily. And this is just a tough team to play against. It's scary. And on the other hand, we will hit them in transition. And I agree. I think 2-1 or 3-2 is my prediction as well. But I will say there's worlds where they just blow us out, unfortunately. It's the Bernabeu Clásico. I've been here too often. I do think a fan asked, do you think we should brace ourselves for humiliation? I don't always do that, but I am aware we could lose. We could still have a good season and lose. It's just I don't like getting too pulled in one direction or another. And for me, that means we could beat Barcelona this season after losing this game. We could lose on some bullshit. We could win easily. It's a lot of variance. And I guess the lot of uncertainty is will we collapse and will Barcelona collapse? I think either team could collapse. And if neither team collapses, it's just a toss-up. It could be 4-3, 5-4, who knows?
Yeah, ultimately, I think you're quite right there. And it's a game of chances. I think if somebody goes 2-0 up, that's probably going to be game over.
You don't think it'll be like last year, like where 2-0 is like nothing, where they put 4 past us in 15 minutes?
I doubt it. I mean, the thing is, with even that game, it was kind of on a knife edge, and one Iñaki Peña save, one offside that could have gone the other way. And you think, I don't know, I think this Barcelona team then were kind of in development, but we're on the rise in terms of their trajectory, and we're kind of getting better, and that kind of gave them a little bit more belief. Whereas now, they kind of know not necessarily where the ceiling is, but they certainly know what they're capable of. But are they going to kind of rise and play a better game than they have been playing? That's a bit of a higher ask for me than Real Madrid, who I always kind of think if two teams don't play well in the Clásico, then Real Madrid need less to go right to win.
Agreed. And the last thing I'll say is my request for the team is bringing back Zidane energy in that Zidane 2016. He lost to Atletico in February. Casemiro played that April Clásico. We broke the Messi, Neymar, Suarez streak. Casemiro followed Messi every inch of the pitch, didn't let him go anywhere. And I would love to see a lockdown defense. Like I know maybe I'm just begging for no reason, but I'm like, I miss the Zidane blocks, and Carlo would come back a few games in a year. Some games it wouldn't even be there. We'd still win the Champions League, but like Dortmund. But just the Zidane Clásicos were so reliable at points. Like the second spell when everything was so defensive. I would just love to see if we can achieve that. It's just, I know it's hard against Flick, but kind of like PSG, they took the sting out of the game a little against Barcelona, marking them. And I don't care how we do it. I want to see a team that like says, hey, you're not getting shots, we're not getting shots. I'd love for us to impose that on them instead of them saying, hey, you can have 5 shots, we're taking 10 too. So like, let's see who scores more. I just like to dictate the terms of battle a little more is my overall hope. And I think we might get that, but that's where it's still a little early with Alonso. I want to get there with Alonso eventually. That's my expectation. But yeah, do you think we can win that at all? You think we can impose a little more defense, or is that just impossible against Hansi Flick?
I think it depends because, again, as we were saying kind of last year, I mean, Hansi Flick's kind of modus operandi, the kind of gamble that he took was, look, I'm going to open this game out, I'm going to make it stretched, and I back ourselves to have better finishers and slightly better kind of defending high than I back the other team to make use of it. And now they don't have that kind of plethora of finishers that they can rely on, Rafinha being one of them, Lewandowski another, and their backline isn't quite as reliable. So I think Flick kind of does have to be a bit more wary, and so you could get quite a cagey game as you kind of mentioned in the opening kind of 60-70 minutes. But I guess with Alonso kind of raising the floor of this Real Madrid side and ensuring that there are less chances, that kind of equation of there's going to be less chances, but I back us to score more of those less chances than you guys. If Barcelona go ahead, then that kind of sends the Alonso plan into the air a little bit, and you're hoping that you get that goal back before the last 20 minutes. So yeah, I think it'll be interesting. And ultimately, if one of these managers decides to kind of throw all the paper up into the air and just do something completely different, then the last hour that we've talked about, this could go in the bin basically as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, well, we will see how long it stays 0-0. I think that is a big factor for sure. I feel more comfortable in Real Madrid games when they stay 0-0 for longer. Not everyone's like that. I get really comfortable because I watch those Zidane years, and a lot of people would get stressed, and we'd just pull out 1-0s eventually. And it's like, this makes sense, guys. Like, our players are better. Those players are worse. Eventually, they're going to get tired. Something's going to slip through. It's like, it's exhausting defending in a block. And yeah, and even some of the Clásicos, like 16-17, when that year when we played well, we were actually down 1-0 in the December Clásico late, and Ramos scored a very late equalizer. And that game, the XG is still pretty limited. They're not like getting what they want all the time. Yeah,
I was actually living in Barcelona for that Clásico. Actually, it's a very quiet bar after that goal went in.
See, that was such a weird one because we really had the momentum going into that game, and they're up 1-0, and it's like, oh, damn it. Like, we had all the momentum. This looks like our year, and they're up 1-0 in the 90th minute. And then Ramos scores, and you realize, oh, this is one of those seasons when Ramos always is there at the end. And I think that was after that, he also scored the winner when Ronaldo was on the bench before Christmas in another 3-2. It was just one of those seasons with Sergio. But yeah, Thank you, Ruri, for coming on. It's been fun talking, different type of convo. Enjoy it. I love talking to people like you who follow all the teams. I'm trying my best. I don't work full time for writing, but I'm trying my best to keep up. But man, thank you so much. Excited to watch the game. Are you going anywhere to the game? What are your plans? Are you writing for it?
Yeah, pleasure was all mine. I'm going to be outside the Bernabeu before the game, and then I think I'm going to go back because I'm going to need to work kind of during it slightly. But yeah, I'm going to probably be watching it from home just because of that need of laptop. But which is a little sad in its own sense, but sometimes I kind of like it for these big games because you kind of get to focus in on it instead of.
I actually understand the game better that way. Like I watched the Champions League final, Dortmund Real in Mumbai. It was fun, but man, that was just tense and nerve wracking. And like, I'd rather be alone. Like I'm not comfortable being around.
I agree, that kind of thing.
Are you do you hang out with more Barcelona or I guess you live in Madrid? Sorry, so you hang out with more Madrid fans. Do you know Barcelona fans? Do you have Barcelona friends in the city? What's the culture like, or is it all Real Madrid fans when you go around?
There is a Peña here somewhere for Barcelona, but I've never been to it. Incidentally, a lot of my friends are more Atleti and probably more Rayo, to be honest, than either of the big two.
That's funny.
Which is kind of refreshing given how much I talk about the big two. So sometimes you get that kind of flip side.
Yeah, and especially a good Atleti year. I'm sure it really feels fun hanging out with them when it's a good Atleti year. But yeah, Ruri, thanks again for coming on. We'll do our best to bring you on, your schedule permitting, whenever we can. Yes, thank you all for tuning in. We're doing a mailbag later to cover Endrick and anything we missed today, maybe a little more nuance on what you want from our lineup that we didn't get into. And then we're live for the post-game show on Sunday. So yeah, if you guys want more appearances from me, Ruri, all the people, just keep hitting likes, comments, tell people what you like about the show, tell a person in real life, or be specific in your comments. Like, engage. We would love to talk. We want this to be the biggest place for Real Madrid discourse. As you know, if you go on Twitter, it's just all head losses everywhere now. So we're trying to create a safe space for everyone. Last thing, I guess, Ruri, is discourse different than ever now? Is it just like more clickbaity than ever? Is this the peak of clickbaity discourse?
Yeah, I think the interesting thing also is if you even look at kind of radio shows and TV programs, how much of that space is dedicated to people on one or the other side of the debate, because there's never a neutral in Spanish football, responding to something that somebody else on the other side of the debate has said, rather than actually kind of talking about the crux of the issue. I mean, so much of it will be somebody coming out with a slightly too brash statement and then somebody else responding to that. And so you get quite often this weird discourse, which is based more on what people have said rather than the kind of points that people are trying to make about the game or what's happened in the game. So
that like where like, oh, this guy said this, he's an idiot. Like
yes, yeah, and there's so much of that, and then sometimes you have to pull yourself back and say, I'm not going to reply to that because I'm not adding anything, and then you're just in a debate between two people that aren't actually talking about the game again. But
no, you gave me a good reminder when I was talking about like when I wasn't going at him, the Tifo guy. I didn't mean to go at him, but we had that little exchange on Twitter when
yeah, no, not at all. But I
get you. Like I'm just picking up straw man arguments, going after people who are just trying to make a living and do their own thing. Like it's stupid. Like stop. Yeah, I get it. And that's why I like talking to people like you who are not as biased, who actually watch the different teams, because like these echo chamber conversations literally give me brain damage. They literally give me brain damage.
They give me some too. I wouldn't want to admit that.
Yeah. And I feel bad because like all the engaging convos is how we all build aspirations to work in football, cover football, be assistants or whatever we do. And the next generation just needs better role models, people like you, Ruri. So follow Ruri if you're listening. Thank you again for tuning in. And we will wrap up here.